Chapter 1. The Invitation. In the heart of a quaint, forgotten town, where the mist clung to the cobblestone streets like a ghostly shroud, an unassuming envelope found its way to a neglected doorstep. The house, with its peeling paint and creaking shutters, sat at the end of a narrow lane, shrouded in an air of desolation. The envelope was yellowed with age, its edges frayed, and a faint symbol, one that seemed to writhe and shift when glimpsed from the corner of the eye, was embossed in faded gold. A cold wind rustled the dry leaves that had gathered around the doorstep, whispering secrets as it swept them along. The house, once vibrant with life and laughter, stood silent, its windows dark and hollow. The air was heavy with an unsettling stillness that clung to everything like a second skin. Inside, a lone figure moved through the dim corridors, their footsteps echoing softly against the hardwood floor. The walls were lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow every movement, their expressions frozen in time. Dust motes danced lazily in the pale shafts of light filtering through the cracks in the curtains. The figure paused at the threshold of the room where the envelope lay, as if sensing the weight of the unseen eyes upon them. A deep breath broke the silence, and the figure stepped forward, reaching for the mysterious missive. The envelope's paper crinkled softly under the touch, yielding a sense of foreboding as it was lifted. Turning it over, the figure examined the symbol more closely. Its intricate lines seemed alive, twisting and intertwining in an impossible pattern. A chill ran down their spine, and the hairs on their necks stood on end, as if an unseen presence were watching, waiting. With a flick of the wrist, the envelope was torn open, revealing a single sheet of paper. The paper was aged and brittle, like something pulled from the depths of a forgotten past. It bore no words, only the same enigmatic symbol, now glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. A sudden gust of wind blew through the house, extinguishing the solitary candle that had cast flickering shadows upon the walls. Darkness enveloped the room, thick and suffocating, as the figure stood motionless, clutching the cryptic invitation. The air grew colder, and the silence deepened, leaving only the sound of a heartbeat echoing in the void. Outside, the mist thickened, creeping ever closer to the house, as if drawn to the unfolding mystery. The symbol pulsed softly in the darkness, casting an eerie glow that hinted at secrets long buried, and the invitation, with its silent promise, awaited an answer. Chapter 2. Echoes in the Night. Night had descended upon the town, bringing with it a profound darkness that wrapped itself around the streets like a suffocating cloak. The moon, a thin crescent, cast a feeble glow that barely pierced the thick veil of clouds hanging overhead. The town, once bustling with life, now lay silent and still, as if holding its breath in anticipation of something unseen. In the shadowy confines of the old house, the figure sat by a flickering fireplace. The flames danced and twisted, casting eerie shadows that writhed along the walls like tormented spirits. The invitation lay on the table, its symbol glowing faintly in the dim light, a constant reminder of the mystery that had wormed its way into the figure's life. The figure's gaze drifted to the window, where the night pressed against the glass like a living thing, hungry and watchful. In the distance, a low, mournful sound echoed through the air, its source hidden within the depths of the darkness. The sound was neither human nor animal, a dissonant note that seemed to vibrate within the very bones. The figure shivered involuntarily, pulling a tattered blanket closer, as the strange sound faded into silence once more. The house seemed to groan in response, its wooden frame creaking softly as though shifting beneath an unseen weight. Every shadow seemed to stretch and elongate, reaching toward the figure like grasping hands. Time passed slowly in the gloom, each minute stretching into eternity. The fire dwindled, its warmth fading, leaving the room cloaked in a chilling cold that seeped into the very marrow. The figure rose, moving to stoke the embers, coaxing them back to life in a futile attempt to dispel the encroaching darkness. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows in their frames, as if demanding entry. A sudden thud resonated through the house, startling the figure into stillness. The sound was not repeated, yet its presence lingered, a reminder of the unknown lurking just beyond the threshold. Unease settled like a heavy fog, wrapping around the figure's mind, filling every corner with doubt and fear. The house, with its memories and secrets, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, whispering promises of revelation and doom. Shadows flitted at the edges of vision, always just out of reach, taunting with their insubstantial forms. As the night wore on, the figure could feel a presence, a consciousness that watched with unseen eyes, waiting patiently in the darkness. The invitation glowed softly, a beacon in the gloom, urging the figure to heed its call and step into the unknown. Outside, the echoes of the night continued, a symphony of whispered secrets and unspoken dread, weaving through the air like a dark melody. And within the house, the figure remained, caught in the web of a mystery that offered no escape, only the promise of deeper shadows yet to come. Chapter 3: The Ominous Whisper. The following morning dawned bleak and cold, the sun struggling to break through the dense layer of clouds that had settled over the town. A pale light filtered through the windows of the old house, casting long shadows across the floor, as if the night refused to relinquish its hold entirely. The figure, weary from a restless night, moved through the house with a heaviness in their step. The invitation, with its cryptic symbol, remained on the table, untouched yet ever present, a silent reminder of the enigma that had woven itself into their life. As the day wore on, a sense of unease lingered in the air, an unseen tension that crackled like static electricity. The house, with its creaking floors and whispering walls, seemed alive, breathing in time with the figure's own apprehension. The portraits on the walls watched with unblinking eyes, their expressions unchanged yet somehow knowing. Outside, the wind picked up, swirling fallen leaves into eddies of orange and gold, painting the town in autumn's dying hues. The air was crisp and biting, carrying with it a whisper, a sound so faint it might have been imagined, yet persistent enough to send a shiver down the spine. The figure paused, listening intently, trying to discern the source of the whisper. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once, a soft susurration that slipped through the cracks and crevices of the old house. It was a voice without words, an echo of something ancient and forgotten, drawing the figure deeper into its spell, drawn by a compulsion they could not name. The figure moved through the house, following the elusive sound. The floorboards creaked underfoot, each step a hesitant approach toward the unknown. The whisper grew stronger, a beckoning call that tugged at the edges of consciousness, leading the figure up a narrow staircase toward the attic door. The door loomed before them, its surface weathered and scarred, a relic of the house's forgotten past. The whisper seemed to emanate from beyond, a persistent lure that promised both discovery and danger. With trembling fingers, the figure reached for the handle, feeling the cold metal bite into their skin as they turned it. The door swung open with a reluctant groan, revealing the attic beyond. Dust hung in the air like a veil, sparkling in the dim light that filtered through a small, grimy window. The room was cluttered with forgotten relics, boxes stacked haphazardly, and furniture draped in white sheets like spectral forms. The whisper intensified, a low murmur that resonated within the walls, guiding the figure toward an old trunk in the corner. Kneeling before it, the figure lifted the heavy lid, revealing a collection of old papers and photographs, each a fragment of the house's hidden history. Among the papers lay another envelope, identical to the first, its symbol glowing faintly in the gloom. As the figure reached for it, the whisper ceased, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake, as if the house itself held its breath in anticipation. With a sense of foreboding, the figure unfolded the new invitation, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon them. The room seemed to close in, shadows gathering at the edges, as the whisper returned, this time echoing within their mind, a silent promise of revelations yet to come. Chapter 4. Shadows in the Attic. The attic was a sanctuary of dust and decay, where forgotten memories lingered beneath the weight of time. The air was thick and stale, tinged with the scent of age and neglect. As the figure stood among the relics of the past, the whisper continued its haunting refrain, a song without words that reverberated through the mind. The second envelope lay open, its contents revealed. A photograph, yellowed and faded, depicting a group of people standing before the house in its prime. Their faces were obscured by shadows, but their postures suggested an air of solemnity, as though captured in a moment of grave significance. In the background, the house loomed, its windows dark and unyielding. The photograph bore the same symbol, subtly etched in one corner, binding it to the invitations and the mystery they carried. The figure traced the symbol with a trembling finger, feeling an inexplicable connection to the people in the image, as though their fates were intertwined across the chasm of time. A sudden chill swept through the attic, ruffling the edges of the photograph and sending a shiver down the figure's spine. The whisper intensified, its cadence shifting from a gentle murmur to a more insistent call, urging the figure to delve deeper into the attic's secrets. Moving with cautious curiosity, the figure began to sift through the contents of the trunk, unearthing letters and trinkets that spoke of lives long forgotten. Each item was a fragment of a larger tapestry, a story woven into the fabric of the house itself, yet shrouded in ambiguity. The light in the attic shifted, casting long shadows that stretched and twisted like living things. The figure's movements disturbed the dust, which danced in the air like spectral apparitions. The silence of the house was palpable, an almost tangible presence that pressed in from all sides. As the figure continued to explore, a small box caught their attention, tucked away beneath a pile of old clothes. Its surface was unadorned, save for the symbol carved into the lid, a silent guardian of whatever lay within. With bated breath, the figure lifted the lid, revealing a collection of journals bound in cracked leather. The journals, fragile with age, seemed to pulse with latent energy, as if eager to divulge their secrets. The figure opened the first, revealing pages filled with cramped handwriting, each line a testament to the thoughts and fears of its long-dead author. The words spoke of strange occurrences, of shadows that moved independently, and of a presence that watched with malevolent intent. The whisper returned, weaving through the figure's thoughts like a persistent echo, urging them to read on, to uncover the truths hidden within the pages. As the figure delved deeper into the journals, the whisper grew more insistent, its tone shifting from coaxing to demanding, as if the very house commanded the secrets be brought to light. In the growing shadows of the attic, the figure felt the weight of the past pressing in, a tide of forgotten memories threatening to engulf them. The journals, with their tales of darkness and dread, offered no solace, only the promise of further mysteries and the inexorable pull of the unknown. As the day waned and the light in the attic faded to a dim twilight, the figure closed the final journal, feeling the chill of the house seep into their bones. The whisper had become a constant companion, a reminder of the enigma that lay at the heart of the house, and the figure knew that the path they had chosen would lead only deeper into the shadows. Chapter 5. A Glimpse of Terror. The figure emerged from the attic, clutching the journals tightly, their mind a swirling maelstrom of half-formed thoughts and unsettling images. The house, with its creaking floors and whispering walls, seemed to welcome their return, as if acknowledging a shared secret now uncovered. Outside, the day had slipped into twilight, the sky awash with bruised hues of purple and gray. The wind sighed mournfully through the trees, and the chill of evening crept into the house, seeping through every crack and crevice. Shadows lengthened and merged, wrapping the figure in a cocoon of darkness. In the dim light, the figure sat by the flickering fire, the journals laid out before them like a sacred text. The whisper, ever present, hummed softly in the background, a reminder of the unseen forces at play. As the firelight danced across the pages, the figure began to read once more, drawn inexorably into the tale of terror that unfolded within the journal's brittle pages. The entries spoke of a presence that had long haunted the house, a malevolent force that fed on fear and despair. The previous occupants had documented their experiences in painstaking detail, each entry a testament to the horrors they had endured. The figure's eyes scanned the lines, each word igniting a spark of dread that spread through their veins like ice. Images of shadowy figures flitted at the edges of consciousness, haunting specters that lurked just beyond the reach of light. The journals described strange occurrences, objects moving of their own accord, doors that opened and closed with no apparent cause, and whispers that echoed through the halls, taunting and tormenting those who dared to listen. The figure turned the page, revealing a sketch drawn in a shaky hand, a depiction of the symbol that had become so familiar. Surrounding it were drawings of shadowy forms, their eyes hollow and empty, their presence palpable even through the faded ink. The figure traced the lines with a trembling finger, feeling a connection to the artist's fear, an echo of terror that resonated across the years. The house seemed to respond to the figure's unease, the shadows deepening, and the whisper growing louder, a cacophony of voices that rose and fell in a chilling symphony. The figure's heart pounded in their chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the growing tension in the air. In a moment of desperation, the figure closed the journal, as if the action could silence the horrors contained within. But the whisper persisted, a relentless reminder of the unseen force that dwelled within the house, a presence that would not be denied. The fire guttered, casting erratic shadows that danced across the walls, and the room grew colder, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. The figure sat motionless, clutching the journals, feeling the weight of the past pressing down upon them, an inexorable tide of fear and uncertainty. As the night deepened and the shadows closed in, the figure knew that the path forward was fraught with danger, that the answers they sought lay buried in darkness and terror. The whisper continued its relentless chant, a siren's call that promised both revelation and ruin, drawing the figure ever closer to the heart of the mystery. Chapter 6: The Forbidden Door. As the night stretched on, the figure found themselves drawn to a part of the house they had not yet explored. The journals had hinted at a hidden room, a place of great significance that had played a central role in the events chronicled within their pages. This room was described in hushed tones, referred to only as the Forbidden Room, a place where the line between the seen and unseen blurred, and where the house's dark heart lay exposed. The figure moved through the dimly lit corridors, the journals clasped tightly to their chest, their footsteps echoing softly in the silence. The house seemed to breathe around them, the walls exhaling a cold breath that chilled the skin. Shadows flickered and danced in the corners of vision, their presence unsettling yet familiar. The forbidden door stood at the end of a narrow hallway, its surface worn and unadorned, save for the symbol etched into the wood, a silent guardian of the secrets within. The air was heavy with anticipation, the whisper a constant murmur that thrummed in the figure's ears, urging them onward. With a deep breath, the figure reached for the handle, feeling the chill of the metal seep into their skin. The door resisted at first, as if bound by an unseen force. But with a determined effort, it swung open, revealing the room beyond. The room was bathed in an eerie light that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. The walls were lined with mirrors, their surfaces tarnished and clouded, reflecting distorted images that twisted and writhed in the dim glow. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ornate box, its lid slightly ajar, as though awaiting discovery. The figure stepped into the room, the atmosphere pressing in from all sides, thick with the weight of unspoken secrets. The mirrors seemed to watch with 1,000 eyes, capturing every movement, every breath, their reflections shifting and changing with a life of their own. Approaching the pedestal, the figure felt a sense of both dread and fascination, a pull that was impossible to resist. The whisper intensified, a cacophony of voices that rose and fell in a haunting symphony, filling the air with their unearthly song. The box was exquisitely crafted, its surface inlaid with the same enigmatic symbol that had become a constant companion in the unfolding mystery. As the figure reached for it, the room seemed to hold its breath, the whisper fading into silence, leaving only the sound of a heartbeat echoing in the void. With trembling hands, the figure lifted the lid, revealing the contents within. A small, intricately carved figurine, its features obscured by a layer of dust. The figurine was both beautiful and unsettling, its form twisted and contorted, capturing a moment of frozen agony. As the figure studied the object, the whisper returned, not as a murmur but as a roar, a deafening chorus that filled the mind with visions of shadowy figures and swirling darkness. The mirrors trembled in their frames, reflecting 1,000 different horrors, each more terrible than the last. The room seemed to pulse with energy, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurring, as the figure stood transfixed, caught in the grip of a terror that defied understanding. The figurine, with its haunting visage, seemed to hold the key to the mystery, a tangible link to the past and the horrors it contained. In that moment, the figure understood that the house was not merely a structure of wood and stone, but a living entity, its walls infused with the essence of those who had come before, their fears and secrets woven into its very fabric. The forbidden door had been opened, and there was no turning back. As the night deepened and the shadows closed in, the figure knew that they were not alone, that the house watched with unseen eyes, waiting for the next chapter in its dark history to unfold. Chapter 7. The Veil of Dreams. Sleep came fitfully to the figure that night, the weight of the discovery in the forbidden room pressing heavily on their mind. The house, with its secrets and shadows, seemed to loom ever closer, a living entity that watched and waited. The whisper had faded to a distant murmur, a lullaby of dread that lingered at the edges of consciousness. In the depths of slumber, the figure found themselves wandering through a landscape of dreams, a realm where the boundaries of reality dissolved into a tapestry of shifting images and fragmented memories. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, a palpable tension that thrummed through the very fabric of the dream world. The figure walked along a path that twisted and turned, leading deeper into a forest shrouded in mist. The trees towered overhead, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blocked out the light, casting the world in perpetual twilight. Shadows flitted among the trunks, their forms indistinct yet menacing, a silent reminder of the dangers that lurked just beyond sight. As the figure continued, they came upon a clearing, where a solitary figure stood, their back turned. The figure was dressed in clothing that seemed both familiar and alien, a reflection of the past mingling with the present. The air was charged with an electric tension, as if the very ground hummed with latent energy. The figure in the clearing slowly turned, revealing a face obscured by shadows, their features shifting and changing, never settling into a recognizable form. The presence exuded an aura of sadness and despair, a loneliness that seeped into the very core of the dreamer. The whisper returned, a gentle susurration that wove through the dream like a thread, binding the dreamer to the strange figure. The dreamer felt an inexplicable connection, a recognition that transcended the boundaries of time and space. The dreamscape shifted, and the figure extended a hand, beckoning with a silent promise of understanding. Compelled by an unseen force, the dreamer reached out, feeling the cool touch of the figure's hand, a tangible link between the conscious and unconscious realms. In that moment, the landscape dissolved, replaced by a swirling vortex of light and shadow, a kaleidoscope of memories and emotions that engulfed the dreamer. Images flashed by in rapid succession, scenes of the house in its prime, filled with laughter and life, juxtaposed against moments of terror and despair. The dreamer witnessed the unfolding of events long past, a tapestry of human experience woven into the very walls of the house. The presence of the shadowy figure lingered, guiding the dreamer through the labyrinth of memories, a silent companion on a journey into the depths of the unknown. As the dream reached its crescendo, the whisper rose to a crescendo, a symphony of voices that sang of loss and longing, of secrets buried beneath the weight of time. The dreamer felt the pull of the waking world, a gentle tug that drew them back toward the surface, leaving the dreamscape behind. The figure awoke with a start, the echoes of the dream still resonating in their mind, the images and emotions vivid and raw. The house was silent, the whisper once more a distant murmur, a reminder of the mysteries that lay yet unexplored. The dream had offered a glimpse beyond the veil, a hint of the truths hidden within the house's shadowed halls. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, the figure rose, determined to uncover the secrets that bound them to the house, to the whisper, and to the mysterious presence that lingered in both dreams and waking hours. Chapter 8: Echoes of the Past. With the dawn came a renewed sense of purpose. The figure moved through the house with quiet determination, the lingering echoes of the dream guiding their steps. The house was a maze of memories, each room a repository of the past, waiting to divulge its secrets to those who dared to look. The figure returned to the library, where the journals lay scattered on the table, each one a portal into the lives of those who had come before. The whisper was a gentle hum in the background, a constant companion that urged the figure onward in their quest for understanding. As they leafed through the pages, the figure began to piece together the fragments of the house's history, tracing the lineage of its inhabitants and the events that had shaped their lives. The journal spoke of joy and sorrow, of moments of triumph and despair, all woven into the tapestry of the house's story. The figure's attention was drawn to an entry that mentioned a peculiar event, a gathering of townsfolk that had taken place many years ago. The words described a night shrouded in mystery, a celebration that had turned to tragedy, leaving an indelible mark on those who attended. The details were vague, the author hesitant to reveal the full scope of what had transpired. Intrigued, the figure turned to another journal, finding more references to the gathering, each account offering a glimpse into the night's events. The whisper grew louder, as if eager to reveal the truth, guiding the figure's hand to a page marked with a crudely drawn symbol, one that matched the emblem found on the invitations. The figure studied the symbol, feeling its significance resonate deep within. It was a sigil of power, a representation of forces beyond comprehension, and it seemed to hold the key to the house's mysteries. The figure felt a shiver run down their spine, a primal recognition of something both ancient and dangerous. Determined to uncover the truth, the figure left the library and ventured into the heart of the house, following a path that felt both familiar and foreign. The air grew colder as they descended into the basement, where the walls seemed to close in, and the shadows deepened into an impenetrable darkness. The basement was a cavernous space, filled with the detritus of generations. The figure moved among the forgotten relics, the whisper a constant guide, leading them to a corner where a large, dust-covered mirror stood propped against the wall. Its surface was tarnished and cracked, yet it seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As the figure approached, the mirror's reflection shifted and changed, revealing fleeting glimpses of figures and faces, shadows that danced and cavorted just beyond the surface. The figure felt a pull, an irresistible urge to reach out and touch the glass, to breach the barrier between reality and the world within. The whisper rose to a crescendo, filling the air with its haunting melody, a siren's call that promised answers and understanding. The figure hesitated, sensing the danger inherent in crossing the threshold, yet unable to resist the allure of the unknown. With a trembling hand, the figure reached out, fingertips brushing the cold surface of the mirror. The world seemed to shift and sway, the boundaries of reality dissolving into a maelstrom of light and shadow. The reflection shattered into a million fragments, each one a window into a different time and place, a kaleidoscope of memories that engulfed the figure. In that moment, the figure understood the truth of the house and the forces that dwelled within its walls. The whisper was no longer a distant echo, but a clear and insistent voice, a guide through the labyrinth of the past and the secrets it held. As the vision faded and the world returned to focus, the figure found themselves back in the basement, the mirror now silent and still, its mysteries revealed but not yet fully understood. The figure knew that the journey was far from over, that the path to revelation lay ahead, fraught with danger and discovery. Chapter 9. The Portrait's Gaze. The figure ascended from the basement, the revelation of the mirror lingering in their thoughts, a puzzle piece fitting into the intricate tapestry of the house's history. The whisper had subsided into a gentle murmur, a constant presence that guided them through the maze of corridors and rooms, each one a repository of memories and secrets. The figure found themselves drawn to the grand hallway on the second floor, a space lined with portraits that depicted the house's many inhabitants throughout the ages. Each painting was a window into the past, capturing moments frozen in time, the subject's eyes following the figure as they moved along the corridor. The portraits were painted in rich, vivid detail, the brushstrokes capturing the essence of each individual, their expressions ranging from serene to somber. The figure paused before one portrait in particular, its subject a stern-looking man with piercing eyes and a resolute expression. The painting was marked by the same symbol, subtly woven into the background, a silent testament to the connection that bound the house and its occupants. As the figure studied the painting, the whisper grew louder, a symphony of voices that spoke of times long past, of moments that had shaped the house and its history. The figure sensed an energy emanating from the portrait, a latent power that pulsed beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. Moving along the hallway, the figure examined each painting in turn, piecing together the lineage of those who had called the house home. The portraits revealed a family tree intertwined with mystery and tragedy, a lineage marked by triumph and despair. Each subject seemed to tell a story, their eyes communicating unspoken truths that resonated across the years. The whisper led the figure to the final portrait at the end of the hallway, its subject a young woman with a gentle smile and eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sorrow. The figure felt a connection to the woman, an inexplicable bond that transcended time and space, as if her spirit lingered within the house, watching over those who dared to uncover its secrets. The figure reached out to touch the frame, feeling the rough texture of the wood beneath their fingertips. In that moment, the whisper intensified, a cascade of images flooding the figure's mind, visions of the woman's life and the choices that had shaped her destiny. The figure saw the woman standing in the garden, the sunlight casting a halo around her head, her expression one of quiet determination. The image shifted, revealing her seated at a desk, writing in a journal, her brow furrowed in concentration as she recorded the events that unfolded around her. The visions were fleeting, ephemeral glimpses into a life that had been both extraordinary and tragic. The figure sensed the weight of the woman's story, her struggles and triumphs echoing through the corridors of the house, a legacy of resilience and courage. As the visions faded, the figure stepped back, the whisper retreating into silence, leaving only the gentle hum of the house's presence. The portraits watched with knowing eyes, their silent vigil unbroken, their stories woven into the fabric of the house's history. The figure knew that the answers lay within the paintings, that the portraits held the key to understanding the mysteries that bound them to the house and the whisper that haunted its halls. The path forward was clear, a journey into the heart of the past, where the truth awaited discovery. Chapter 10. The Hidden Passage. With the new understanding gained from the portraits, the figure felt a renewed sense of purpose. The house seemed to guide them, its whisper a subtle nudge toward uncovering further secrets. They wandered through the dimly lit corridors, their mind preoccupied with the threads of history and the connections between the portraits and the mysterious forces at play. As the figure moved through the house, they noticed a peculiar draft emanating from behind a large tapestry hanging in a dimly lit hallway. The fabric was heavy and ornate, depicting a scene from a bygone era. The draft was faint but persistent, a cold breath against the figure's skin that hinted at something hidden. With careful deliberation, the figure approached the tapestry and pulled it aside, revealing a wooden panel behind it. The panel was old and weathered, its surface adorned with the same symbol that had appeared in the portraits and the journals. The figure felt a shiver of anticipation, recognizing the significance of the emblem. A hidden mechanism lay embedded in the panel, a small, iron ring set into the wood. The figure grasped the ring and pulled, feeling a resistance at first before the panel creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway concealed within the wall. The passage was dimly lit by a faint, eerie glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The figure hesitated for a moment, taking in the dark, foreboding corridor that stretched before them. The passage was lined with old, dusty sconces that held long-extinguished candles, their flickering light casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air was thick with the scent of damp and decay, a reminder of the passage's long-forgotten purpose. Stepping into the passage, the figure felt the weight of the house's history pressing in around them. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper and intricate carvings, their details obscured by years of neglect. The passage wound and twisted, leading deeper into the heart of the house, the whisper now a distant murmur that seemed to guide the figure onward. As the figure navigated the passage, they came upon a small chamber, its walls lined with shelves filled with dusty, cobweb-covered objects. In the center of the room stood an old, ornate desk, its surface cluttered with faded documents and a large, ancient book bound in cracked leather. Drawn to the desk, the figure approached and carefully opened the book, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The book was filled with detailed sketches and handwritten notes, depicting symbols and rituals that spoke of ancient practices and arcane knowledge. The entries were meticulous, detailing rites and ceremonies designed to commune with forces beyond the mortal realm. The figure's eyes were drawn to a particular entry, an illustration of a ritual that matched the symbol found throughout the house. The diagram depicted a ceremony involving a circle of candles, ancient texts, and a central object, the same ornate box discovered in the Forbidden Room. Understanding dawned, connecting the symbols and rituals to the events chronicled in the journals. The figure realized that the house was not merely a repository of memories, but a conduit for powerful, hidden forces, and that the rituals described in the book were key to unlocking the full extent of these forces. As the figure closed the book and stood in the small chamber, The passage seemed to grow colder, the whisper now a faint, almost imperceptible hum. The figure knew that the path ahead was fraught with danger and discovery, that the hidden passage had revealed just a fragment of the house's secrets. Emerging from the passage, the figure replaced the tapestry and returned to the main part of the house, the weight of their discoveries settling heavily upon them. The house was silent, its secrets now partially uncovered, but the true nature of the forces at play remained elusive, waiting to be fully revealed. Chapter 11. The Ritual's Echo. The figure emerged from the hidden passage, their mind racing with the implications of the ritual described in the ancient book. The house seemed to pulse with a newfound energy, its walls whispering secrets in a language just beyond comprehension. Determined to understand the full extent of the house's dark history, the figure prepared to delve deeper into the mystery. The first step was to gather the necessary items mentioned in the ritual: candles, texts, and the ornate box. The figure moved methodically through the house, collecting the objects with a sense of urgency. The candles were retrieved from the dusty shelves in the hidden chamber, their wax hardened over time but still intact. The texts were carefully chosen from the library, their pages filled with arcane knowledge and forbidden lore. With everything assembled, the figure set up the ritual space in the grand hall, choosing a central location that seemed to resonate with the house's energy. The grand hall was adorned with elaborate carvings and intricate patterns, its high ceilings and sweeping archways creating a dramatic backdrop for the ceremony. The figure arranged the candles in a precise circle, their placement guided by the diagram in the book. The ornate box was positioned at the center, its presence a focal point for the ritual. The texts were laid out around the circle, their contents a source of ancient power and knowledge. As the figure lit the candles, their flames flickered and danced, casting long, eerie shadows that stretched across the room. The whisper in the house grew louder, a chorus of voices that seemed to respond to the ritual's preparations. The air grew thick with anticipation, charged with a palpable sense of dread and expectancy. The figure began to recite the incantations from the ancient texts, their voice a silent movement of the lips, the words of power flowing through the space. The ritual's energy built steadily, the candles' flames growing brighter, their light casting strange, shifting patterns on the walls. The whisper coalesced into a single, resonant tone, echoing the ancient words and adding its own haunting melody to the ceremony. As the figure completed the final incantation, a sudden, chilling wind swept through the grand hall, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The ornate box at the center of the circle began to tremble, its surface vibrating with an otherworldly force. The figure's heart raced as the room filled with a low, rumbling sound, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to come from the very foundations of the house. In the darkness, the figure could see the faint, ghostly outlines of figures moving among the shadows, their forms shifting and writhing in a dance of spectral light. The air was filled with an oppressive weight, a force that pressed down upon the figure, causing their breath to come in short, ragged bursts. The box suddenly flew open with a resounding crash, its lid slamming against the floor. Within it lay an intricate artifact, its design matching the symbols from the texts. The artifact seemed to pulse with a life of its own, its surface glowing with a faint, eerie light. As the figure reached out to retrieve the artifact, the whisper crescendoed into a deafening roar, the voices of the house rising in a chaotic symphony. The room swirled with shadows and light, the boundaries of reality bending and warping as the forces unleashed by the ritual took hold. The figure felt a surge of power and fear, a tumultuous blend of emotions that threatened to overwhelm. The artifact's glow grew brighter, casting a sickly green light that illuminated the entire room with a ghostly hue. The spectral figures grew more distinct, their faces twisted in expressions of agony and longing. The ritual had succeeded in awakening something ancient and powerful, a force that had been dormant for generations. The figures stood at the heart of the storm, their body and mind caught between the realms of the living and the dead, the past and the present. As the wind howled and the shadows danced, the figure understood that the true nature of the house and its secrets was now within reach, but the price of that knowledge would be steep. The whisper faded into silence, leaving only the echo of the ritual's power and the lingering presence of the forces that had been unleashed. Chapter 12. The Haunting Revelation. The grand hall lay in eerie silence, the candles extinguished, and the spectral figures having faded into the darkness. The figure stood alone in the dim glow of the artifact, its eerie light casting a sickly pallor over the room. The weight of the ritual's power hung heavily in the air, and the house seemed to breathe with a deep, resonant pulse. The figure approached the artifact, now resting on the floor amidst the scattered candles and disrupted texts. Its surface was intricately carved with symbols that matched those from the ancient book. The glow of the artifact flickered like a heartbeat, casting strange, undulating shadows on the walls. The figure reached out, feeling the cold, smooth surface of the artifact under their fingertips. As they touched it, the artifact's glow intensified, and the room was suddenly filled with a low, resonant hum. The air grew colder, and a chill ran down the figure's spine as if the house itself were reacting to the artifact's awakening. The glow of the artifact began to coalesce, forming a swirling vortex of light and shadow. Within the vortex, images began to take shape. Scenes from the past, interspersed with disturbing and fragmented visions. The figure saw glimpses of the house as it was centuries ago, its rooms filled with people, laughter, and life. Yet, these images were tainted by a creeping darkness, a malevolent presence that seemed to seep into every corner. The visions grew darker and more chaotic, showing the house's inhabitants caught in moments of terror and despair. Shadows moved with unnatural speed, and the faces of those depicted twisted in silent screams. The figure watched in silent horror as the house's history unfolded before them, revealing a series of tragic events linked to the artifact's power. Among the disturbing scenes, the figure saw a recurring image. A figure, cloaked in darkness, performing rituals with the artifact. This shadowy figure seemed to harness the artifact's power for sinister purposes, their actions invoking forces beyond the natural realm. The rituals depicted were dark and foreboding, involving the summoning of entities that thrived on fear and suffering. As the vortex of images continued to swirl, the figure saw a final, haunting vision. The shadowy figure's ultimate act, an unholy ritual that had bound the house and its inhabitants to the artifact's power, trapping them in a cycle of eternal torment. The house had become a prison for the souls of those who had fallen victim to the ritual's dark magic. The vision faded, leaving the room in oppressive darkness once more. The artifact's glow dimmed to a faint shimmer, its power seemingly spent. The figure stood amidst the remnants of the ritual, their mind reeling from the revelation. The house's history was now clear, the connection between the artifact and the house's haunting legacy undeniable. The whisper returned, softer now but carrying a tone of both warning and sorrow. The house seemed to mourn the loss of the artifact's control, its once vibrant energy now tinged with a palpable sense of despair. The figure felt a deep, overwhelming sadness, a recognition of the house's fate and the suffering of those trapped within. As the figure gathered themselves, they understood that the artifact was not merely a relic but a key to breaking the cycle of torment. The house's dark history was now laid bare, but the true challenge lay in confronting the forces bound to the artifact and finding a way to release the souls trapped by its power. The figure knew their journey was far from over. With the haunting revelation fresh in their mind, they set out to find a way to undo the damage wrought by the artifact and to bring peace to the house and its restless inhabitants. Chapter 13. The Confrontation. With the artifact's power revealed, the figure's resolve hardened. The house, now suffused with a palpable sense of dread, seemed to respond to the figure's newfound determination. The whisper, once a mere murmur, now resonated with a more urgent tone, guiding the figure through the darkened corridors. The figure made their way to the basement, where the vibrations from the artifact had previously seemed to pulse through the floor. The basement, once a simple storage area, now felt like the very heart of the house's malevolent energy. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with an oppressive weight. Upon reaching the basement, the figure noticed subtle changes in the environment. The walls appeared to be shifting, and faint, eerie lights flickered in the corners of the room. The figure approached the center of the basement, where the old, forgotten rituals had taken place. The space was filled with the remnants of past ceremonies, ancient symbols scrawled on the walls and dusty, cobweb-covered artifacts. In the center of the basement lay a large, circular symbol etched into the floor, its design matching the patterns seen in the artifact and the ancient texts. The figure stepped into the center of the circle, feeling the ground beneath them pulse with a strange, rhythmic energy. The house seemed to hold its breath, the silence deepening as if waiting for the confrontation to unfold. The figure took out the artifact and placed it at the center of the circle. As it touched the floor, a shiver ran through the room, and the faint, eerie lights intensified, casting long, quivering shadows that danced across the walls. The whisper grew louder, a cacophony of voices that seemed to converge on the basement, their sound both unsettling and compelling. The symbol on the floor began to glow with a cold, blue light, the lines of the circle becoming more defined. The temperature dropped sharply, and a chilling breeze swept through the basement, causing the figure's breath to form misty clouds in the frigid air. The house's energy surged, and the figure felt an almost tangible force pressing against them. From the darkened corners of the room, shadowy figures began to materialize. Their forms were indistinct and shifting, their presence marked by an aura of malevolence. The figures moved toward the circle, their movements fluid and eerie, as if they were emerging from a realm beyond the tangible world. The figures stood their ground, the artifact's glow forming a barrier between them and the encroaching shadows. The spectral figures seemed to recoil from the light, their forms flickering and wavering as they approached the circle's edge. The whisper grew more frantic, a storm of voices pleading, warning, and commanding. As the figures drew closer, the artifact's glow intensified, casting a blinding light that illuminated the entire basement. The light revealed the true nature of the shadows, wretched, tormented souls trapped in a state of perpetual suffering. Their faces were twisted in expressions of agony and despair, their forms constantly shifting as if trying to escape an invisible prison. The figure reached out, feeling the power of the artifact flow through them, a conduit between the living world and the spectral realm. The artifact's light reached out toward the figures, its energy pushing them back, forcing them to retreat. The shadows writhed and twisted, their movements growing more frenzied as they were pushed away from the circle. The figure focused their mind and will, channeling the artifact's power to break the bonds that held the spirits captive. The light from the artifact grew even brighter, filling the room with a searing radiance that burned away the shadows. The spectral figures howled in anguish, their forms disintegrating into wisps of smoke and vapor. As the last of the shadows faded and the light of the artifact dimmed, the basement fell into a profound silence. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a calm, almost serene atmosphere. The figures stood alone in the center of the circle, their heart pounding from the intensity of the confrontation. The artifact lay still, its glow faded but its power unmistakable. The basement, once a chamber of torment, was now quiet, its air clear and free of the malevolent presence that had haunted it. The house's whisper had become a faint echo, a reminder of the battle fought and the victory won. With the confrontation over, the figure knew their journey was nearing its end. The house had been cleansed of its darkest shadows, but the path to true peace and resolution remained. The artifact's power had been unleashed, and its role in the house's story was far from finished. Chapter 14. The Final Confrontation. With the basement now clear of malevolent shadows, the figure moved through the house with a sense of cautious optimism. The air was lighter, but an underlying tension remained, a reminder that the journey was not yet complete. The whisper, though much softer, still lingered, as if urging the figure toward a final, crucial revelation. The figure returned to the grand hall, where the ritual had initially been performed. The room, now eerily calm, was bathed in the soft light of dawn filtering through the high windows. The once foreboding atmosphere had shifted, but a lingering sense of unease remained, hinting at a final, unresolved element. The figure approached the ornate box, which had been the focal point of the ritual. Its lid was closed, but the energy it had once radiated seemed to have settled into a subdued hum. The figure's hand hovered over the box, a mix of anticipation and trepidation in their movements. Slowly, the figure opened the box, revealing its contents. Inside lay a collection of old letters, their paper yellowed with age and their edges frayed. Each letter was tied with a ribbon, its surface covered in faded, intricate script. The figure carefully untied one of the letters and unfolded it, revealing a message pinned in a delicate, flowing hand. The letter recounted a personal account of the house's history from the perspective of one of its former inhabitants. It spoke of the initial discovery of the artifact, the dark rituals performed, and the eventual realization of the artifact's true nature. The writer's words conveyed a deep sense of regret and sorrow, acknowledging the consequences of their actions and the suffering caused. The figure read through several letters, each one offering a piece of the puzzle. The accounts detailed the efforts to break the artifact's hold over the house, the challenges faced, and the eventual decision to leave the house in the hope that time would heal the wounds inflicted by the dark rituals. As the figure read, the whisper grew louder, resonating with a tone of resolution. The letters revealed a final, critical piece of information: a hidden chamber within the house that contained the last remnants of the ritual's power. The chamber was described as a place of both refuge and finality, a location where the artifact's influence could be permanently severed. Determined to end the house's torment once and for all, the figure set out to find the hidden chamber. Guided by the descriptions in the letters, they moved through the house, searching for a concealed entrance. The house seemed to shift and change, as if actively resisting their efforts, but the figure pressed on with unwavering resolve. After a thorough search, the figure found a hidden door behind a large bookcase in the library. The door was concealed by a complex mechanism, its design matching the symbols found throughout the house. The figure carefully manipulated the mechanism, causing the door to creak open, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward. The staircase descended into a dark, musty underground chamber. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and age-old dust. The chamber was small, its walls lined with ancient symbols and arcane writings. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested an intricately carved, ancient tome. The figure approached the tome, its cover adorned with the same emblem that had appeared throughout the house. The whisper intensified, a symphony of voices that seemed to reach a crescendo. The figure carefully opened the tome, revealing pages filled with ritualistic texts and diagrams. Following the instructions within the tome, the figure performed the final ritual, a series of precise movements and incantations designed to sever the artifact's influence and release the souls trapped by its power. The chamber was filled with a blinding light, the energy coalescing into a powerful force that surged through the house. As the ritual concluded, the light dimmed, leaving the chamber bathed in a soft, tranquil glow. The oppressive atmosphere that had once pervaded the house was replaced by a sense of calm and peace. The whisper had faded into silence, and the house seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The figures stood alone in the chamber, their task complete. The house was finally free from the grip of the artifact's dark power. The final confrontation had been met with resolve and courage, bringing an end to the cycle of torment and suffering. With a sense of closure, the figure emerged from the chamber, the house now a place of quiet solitude, its dark past finally laid to rest. The journey had been long and arduous, but the resolution was a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the power of confronting the darkest of forces. Chapter 15. The Dawn of Peace. The first light of dawn filtered through the grand windows of the house, casting a warm, gentle glow over the once foreboding rooms. The air was clear, free of the oppressive weight that had hung over the house for so long. The figure, weary but resolute, walked through the now tranquil halls, each step echoing with a newfound serenity. The house, once a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, now felt like a place of calm reflection. The furniture, the ornate carvings, and the old portraits that lined the walls seemed to welcome the light with an almost palpable sense of relief. The haunting energy that had pervaded the house had been replaced by a gentle, soothing ambience. In the grand hall, where the final ritual had taken place, the figure paused to take in the changes. The circle of candles that had once marked the site of the confrontation was now surrounded by scattered remnants of the ceremony, the wax having hardened into intricate patterns. The ornate box, still resting on the floor, was now a symbol of both the trials faced and the peace achieved. The figure moved to the library, where the hidden door had been discovered. The bookcase, once a barrier, now stood as a testament to the house's secrets being unveiled. The figure's gaze fell upon the old volumes and letters that had provided crucial insights, their contents now fully understood and appreciated. The hidden chamber beneath the library, where the final ritual had taken place, was now bathed in the soft light of day. The ancient tome, with its intricate carvings and arcane knowledge, lay quietly on its pedestal. The chamber's energy had shifted from one of intense struggle to a place of calm resolution, its dark power extinguished. The figure made their way to the garden, the once neglected space now vibrant and alive with the colors of blooming flowers and lush greenery. The garden, which had long been overshadowed by the house's dark history, now flourished under the morning sun. The figure wandered among the flowers, their fragrance mingling with the fresh, crisp air. As they walked through the garden, the figure noticed small signs of renewal and growth. The plants, once wilted and sparse, had revived, their leaves and petals reaching toward the light. The garden's transformation mirrored the changes within the house, a symbol of the rebirth and healing that had taken place. The figure paused by a small, tranquil pond at the garden's edge. The water, once murky and still, was now clear and reflective, mirroring the sky above. The figure gazed into the pond, their reflection a reminder of the journey undertaken and the peace now achieved. With a sense of accomplishment and tranquility, the figure turned to leave the garden. The house, now a place of quiet reflection and renewal, stood as a monument to the courage and determination that had brought about its transformation. The dark chapters of its past had been closed, and a new chapter of peace and healing had begun. As the figure departed, the house seemed to embrace the dawn of a new era. The whispers that had once haunted its halls were now gone, replaced by a profound silence that spoke of rest and renewal. The journey had come full circle, the darkness giving way to light, and the house stood as a testament to the triumph of hope over despair.